Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to tonight's second half. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into tonight's second half, shall we? All right, everybody. Today I have a subscriber who took some time out of his day to share some stuff that he has witnessed out in the wilds of America. Tom, how are you?
I am doing good. Hang on. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
okay,
I can hear you great.
Sorry.
You're...
Doing good. And yeah, doing good.
Well, thank you for taking some time out of your day to come on the channel and share some of the stuff you've seen out in the wilds. So, as you know, I don't direct my shows. I just give the floor to you, and you control it at your pace. So that's what I'm going to do.
Okay. I appreciate that, Jeff. I will get a little specific. This was in the, this did happen well, it started in Wyoming. And there, I don't want to get into specific into the town, but anyways, I lived in this place for a while and, working out there. And one of my friends who was one of my good hunting buddies, he had some tracking dogs that we did mountain lion and bear hunting with, and he guided people and stuff, and we'd go out there, and a lot of times we'd just get on track more often than not we'd tree a cat, and of course if it's a female, she's not take pictures of it. If it's a young male or whatever, mostly just we would take pictures, and I believe I did get one mountain lion that way. But anyway, so in this community, everybody knows everybody. So then it came to where the Game and Fish would contact him if there was, which was happened quite a bit in the winter times. The older, usually it was mountain lions. So, an older cat, when it starts can't hunt anymore, losing a lot of teeth, they come in and start preying on pets.
Right.
So, and then they need to be removed. So my buddy and some of the times I would go with him, and, we'd get this call out, and always it was at night. And, we'd get the cat, it'd run up on top of the house or something to get away from the dogs, and we'd dispatch it. One time there was a bear, and, of course, same thing, got the bear in, I think you got him in behind a shopping center, and we're able to dispatch it. And it was an old bear. And then plus, a lot of people think, wintertime, a bear's going to be hibernating. Not true. They don't always hibernate. The farther south you go in latitudes, bears don't always, if the winters aren't that bad, they're not going to hibernate.
Right.
And plus, even up north, sometimes bears will come out of hibernation in the wintertime. If they didn't, if they get hungry or something, it's not uncommon. So anyways, and there was times when he was out of town that Game and Fish would contact me and say, hey, we got this over here. And I'd go get the dogs. The dogs, they knew me very well. There's two dogs. There's some kind of hound dogs. I'm not real technical on dog read names, but something that was, I guess, pretty common for doing that type of work. Well, one night, and remember, it was cold, so it was either winter or, hey, I got somebody at the door. Can we pause this for a second?
Yep.
Okay. So anyways, I think this was around late winter, early spring. It was still really cold up in that part of the country and windy. I remember it was windy as heck that night. But anyways, really can't even remember about what time it was at night, but I know it was dark. And get a call from Game and Fish, and they said they had a bear. And it was he said they had two bears, and it was down south of this town. I can't even remember how many miles it was. It was over 20 or 30 miles. You cross the border into Utah, and there was another town that was on the Utah side. So that was where we were headed. So on the way there, because when he came by, he said that, there's two bears. And backing it up a little bit, one of the times whenever we had to dispatch a mountain lion, I always used a 22. And, it was easy to get a clean, easy shot on him. And it was quiet because it was in town. And, anyways, he said, don't bring that damn 22. And he said it's two bears. And I'm thinking, that's odd. Bears, first I was like, two. Oh, that just doesn't happen. If it's a sow with cubs, they cubs from the year before, and usually they're separated by then. So I thought, anyways, I didn't give it much other than I remember saying that. I thought, oh, that's weird. But anyways, he said, don't bring that damn 22. I said, all right. And the only other gun I had was my 300 Win Mag. So I grabbed that and the, box of ammo, load up the dogs in the back of the Game and Fish truck, and we're headed south out of town. And on the way, there was a lot of conversation on the radio with him and dispatch, and then dispatch giving directions on. So who we usually would meet up with was, the local municipality, the local police, That wasn't uncommon, so I kind of just didn't pay it much mind, other than it seemed like I remember he was getting a little agitated. I couldn't remember what it was about. But then, so we get down there, and he was in contact with whoever, with whoever the local police was there, and getting directions on where we were to go. So what it was, there was an alleyway with a fence that ran along it, and I think on one side of the alleyway was the backside of like a little shopping center, and then there's a fence, and there's this alleyway, and then on the other side of the other fence were some houses, and I think maybe they were like, mobile homes. Anyways, but there were houses there. And so in that alleyway, so on one end of the alleyway, which I think the alleyway was about 150 yards long. I could be wrong on that. And the police were on one side. I saw two vehicles there, and they had their spotlights out. I'm like, what? Anyway, so then we pulled in on the other side of the alleyway, and then another car pulled in behind us. And I remember what I thought was kind of weird about this. I was like, why is the county sheriff deputy from where we just came from clear down here? We're in Utah, But anyways, there they were. So I thought, well, they're bears. Sometimes take all precautions necessary, because even a 150-pound bear can do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
So I get that. So anyways, then, so I didn't unload the dogs yet, because it was, wasn't instructed to. I didn't know what their game plan was. And I started where we stopped there, and they would shine a spotlight in the alleyway. There was like a dugout but it was where there was a dumpster in where the fence was like set back like a rectangle area that like it sets back about 6 feet and then across 10 feet and then back out, so the dumpster could sit in that fence groove without blocking the alleyway. You follow me?
Yep.
Okay. So anyways, when he's talking on the radio with somebody, and the other thing is too, on radios for some reason, even when I'm carrying a radio at work, I have a hard time hearing people. They just muffled stuff is just, it never has come clear to me to understand that well. But it was, the gist of it that I was getting was like, that he was, by this time he was instructed to wait, and he was like, we came all the way down here. Why are we waiting? But, and then and I looked over and I saw the sheriff deputy that came in behind us was leaned over the hood of his car with a rifle. And just about every law enforcement, municipality that carries a bolt action rifles is usually going to be a 308 Remington Model 700. And that's what I figured this probably was. So he leaned over it with the rifle, just sitting there looking through the scope. And then I heard a commotion by that dumpster. I'm like, oh, well, I kind of figured that's where the bears was. That confirmed it. But I thought something didn't sound right. There was a couple of really big thumps. I mean, thumps that I was standing on the ground, and from where we were to where the dumpster was probably it was a little over 50 yards, maybe 75 at the most. But I felt those thumps in my feet. And I mean, it wasn't just like, oh, did you feel that? No, it was like, holy crap. I didn't even have to ask if everybody else felt it. So the Game and Fish and the sheriff deputy, let me be more specific. The sheriff deputy was probably maybe 30 feet from his front bumper to the back bumper of the truck where we were. And then the Game and Fish, who I was with, turned and shined his spotlight on that dumpster. And all hell broke loose. And I mean, it went berserk. And I didn't get a good look at what was going on there, but I could see next to the bumper, I saw black. I definitely saw hair, fur hair, whatever. And when it did that, he immediately shut the light off. And I don't know if it was because he noticed that it caused a reaction or what, but he immediately shut the light off. And then I remember him asking me again. He said something about you didn't bring that damn 22. And I'm like, I was clear about that, from the get-go. But anyways, the local municipality, this is what I did get out of the radio. They said dispatch. They said dispatch it. They said dispatch them now. And I think that was because of the explosive reaction from the light. So I had my gun out. I'm leaning across the back of the truck. I have 2 dogs in the back of the truck that I could smell. They peed all over the place. And the truck was shaking like hell. And I don't think the dogs were shaking the truck. I think Game and Fish was shaking the truck. And I said, quit shaking the damn truck. So I had a 3-9 scope on the rifle, and it was not a very high quality scope. But so from the ambient light, from the lights from the municipality on the other end of the alley, there, of course, it cast a shadow in where these 2 things were between the dumpster and the fence on the side of the opposite end of the alley. So they were in there, but they were on the shadowed side. So it was hard to discern what. I still at this time didn't like. That's a big fucking bear. I mean, that's got to be a big fucking bear. And I saw black, and I mean jet black and fur, and which is another thing. Most of the bears up there are usually a brown phase. It's not very common to get a black one, but it really didn't hurt me that much. But so anyways, that municipality, and I think it was the county sheriff on that side of the, on the Utah side, and they were saying to dispatch it. So I was just waiting I figured the deputy that came up behind us was going to do it. At this point, I'm like, he's got his rifle out. I got mine out. Well, then the Game and Fish called out to him, and he didn't say anything. And then it dawned on me that the angle he was at, they were more behind the dumpster. So I'm kind of looking at him at almost not quite a 45-degree angle, but at an angle to where I could see between the dumpster and that side of the fence. So I'm looking in my scope, and I'm trying to find a body part. You got to, especially in an urban environment, like you don't want a bad shot. You got to dispatch it quick. So I'm still thinking bear. I'm looking through my scope trying to find a body part, and I see the lid is up on the dumpster. I could see kind of a black mass back there. For one, it almost looked like initially to me, I thought something was crawling out of the dumpster, because I see this blackness going over the side of the dumpster on that side but it was sitting there. I couldn't tell if it was moving or not. I didn't know what that was. And I'm going, is that another bear in the dumpster? It's just still not, I'm still on that. This has got to be a bear,
Right.
So starting to discern the movement here, and okay, there are two there, but I couldn't tell where one ended and the other one began. So we asked the whatever municipality on the other end of the alley if they had another spotlight that they could get higher up to show some more light on it. So they turned on another light. I think by this time there was 3 cars down at that other end. And then Jeff was still, Game and Fish was still bantering back and forth with whoever, his dispatch or whatever, and it sounded like it was an argument now. But anyway, so when he called out to the deputy if he could dispatch him, I still, up until this point, hadn't heard that deputy didn't introduce himself and nothing. He hadn't said a word, but then Game and Fish calls out to him, and I could see from where we were that he probably didn't have a good shot because the dumpster was blocking them way more. But then the deputy answers back, but his talking was like, the only thing what I could equate it to or relate it to, I guess, was, when you jump in some really cold water and it takes your breath away and you're like, huh? The way your breath, that's the way it sounded like he was talking.
Almost like a frantic kind of thing, huh?
And he couldn't talk. Yeah. It was like, are you hyperventilating? In hindsight, he was. And my heart went out to the guy. But I got to catch my breath on this for a second.
Take your time.
Okay. So, okay. So, I cranked the scope up. It was a 3-9 scope, and I cranked it up a little bit more, and that's where I could see that there was 2 of these for sure. And one of them, I don't know if one was a male or one was a female. One was way bigger. And at first I'm thinking, with that black mass back there, they're both equal size. No, they weren't. But, the smaller one was crouched down. The best I could see was crouched down, and I could see at one point it looked like, and here's where I knew they weren't bears, was because I could see it almost looked like a snake-like movement. I could see this thing stretching out on the ground, reaching around the dumpster, and I'm thinking, what the heck am I looking at? And then I could see on the end of it was a hand.
Wow.
And another arm came out, and it was another hand, and it was I think it was the bottom one trying to crawl out. So I'm starting to, as it like reaches up out a little bit, one behind it. The one behind it, I think the one behind it was hitting it. You could hear the hits. You ever played as kids and you punch your friend in the back and you hear that thunk, the hollow thunk.
Right.
You multiply that by about I don't know what, but it was hitting it. And then I heard it hit the ground again. Something was hitting the ground. So I don't know what was hitting the ground, but you could feel the vibration. But the way this one repositioned, and I know this probably wasn't the way it was sitting, but to me, it looked like it was kind of sitting like you'd almost sit Indian style, but I know it wasn't. But it was at this time, that was when I finally saw what I knew to be, there was a face. And that was where it was jet black too. And it was being as dark as it was hard to make. I could see a face and I could see what the face was, but details too much. I know there was, it definitely wasn't a person, but it wasn't a bear.
Right.
There was almost no hair on it because I could see the shine in the, from the ambient light. I saw a glisten of shine on the skin that was still black. I mean, it was black. There was no, beige. It was black. And as I'm looking at it through the scope, there was, and I don't know if it were the reflect. It was, I saw the eyes just, and I just, hopefully it was just reflection, but I saw both eyes ding, and it was definitely looking right at me. And so I shot that. And I wished I hadn't. At that point, I wished I wasn't even there. I wished I wasn't even on this planet.
Right.
That's when I saw, and it went, it was that either you shot through one of the eyes or like right close to the eyes. It was there was no doubt that was a good part, but that was at that point, I didn't have remorse. I was scared shitless.
Yeah.
I didn't even want to be born at that time. But then we're committed, and Game and Fish called out to the sheriff deputy again, and he wasn't doing anything. But when all this went down, then the one that was behind it stood partially up. And as it was standing up, there wasn't another one in the dumpster. There was a hand. It was its hand on that dumpster that had a hold of the edge of the dumpster with one hand. And it's thrashing around. It picked that dumpster up and slammed it on the ground like it was a plastic wastebasket.
Wow. Do you need to take a minute? Do you want me to pause to take a minute?
No, I'm okay. I got this.
Just let me know if you want to. It's not a big deal, my friend.
I appreciate it. I think once I get through this last part, I'll be okay with this. But so, anyways, as it stood up, it started standing up, and that was a privacy fence. And that thing it didn't even stand all the way up. So I can't, but if it had, it would have been twice the height of that fence. It was however big those dumpsters are. Its width of its shoulders was probably 2/3 the width of, those dumpsters with two lids that flip up.
Yeah.
And so it's partway standing up, and it was making, before all this, before everything went to shit, it was, you could hear some noises, but to me, it wasn't like you didn't hear. There was some growling, that's for sure. But where I grew up on the near the Navajo Indian Reservation, I know a lot of Navajo and Navajo friends, and there are a lot of their enunciation in their words. There's a lot of, yep. And that's what some of that was reminding me of, was whatever the noises was making, was it had a lot of the click and like tongue drag with it. That's what it was, which I guess it definitely wasn't comforting. But anyways, when it stood up or started coming up and looked right in our direction, and that's where I think if I had dinner, I would have had bigger problems. And I'm being dead serious. So when it did that, there was, I guess I got a lot more calmness in me, because I was focused on, this is what needs to be done now. Because I'll explain more. Maybe it's not relevant later on, but so, I'm going to put a little more detail into this also, because I've heard on other discussions on different podcasts on people saying they can't be killed.
Okay.
If anything bleeds, it can die. You can die.
Right.
And so at the time, I knew what Bigfoot was, but this wasn't what I ever saw. And all I knew was like the Patterson Gimlin film and the Leonard Nimoy In Search Of, when they, to me, that's not this. There was no head crest. Right. It was jet black. The one behind it, as it was making its fit, it looked like it would slink its head down to where it almost looked like the head come out of the chest, to where the shoulders were higher than the top of the head. And no, it wasn't a coned head. It was a round head. And so as it stood up, it arched its, I don't know, it lit. I think they can move their heads a lot more of a range of motion than people realize, I guess. I don't know. This is what I saw. The head come up a bit, but I still couldn't see a neck. But I could see with the ambient light that this is where I made out the face on this one. And I'm assuming that the other one probably looked a lot like it. But it definitely a human face, but it reminded me of the jaw on this thing. Was just, this jaw could smash concrete. If you threw this thing a freaking brick, it looked like it could just pulverize that brick to nothing, to dust. The jaw on it was so massive and out of proportion for this thing's head. It was so, and I could see it definitely, the face stuck out a bit toward, more than a human does, of course. And it did have a nose. There was a nose, but it wasn't like a huge nose that stuck out or anything. I remember there was a nose there that didn't look unordinary for what a person's nose would look like. But this thing did not look, it had there was a human look to it, but it was like, this is not right. Definitely not right.
Right.
But that jaw was just, I would say, the width, just the chin alone, from the bottom lip to the bottom of the chin, I don't even think put my hand over it would cover the whole, that distance. It was huge. It almost kind of looked like the way it jutted out even more past I don't know why I get so fixated on this, but it was just, that was one of the main things I noticed about it. I didn't notice ears, anything else, and then the massiveness of it. But anyways, when we get back to the moment at hand, then I took another shot. Oh, and so I used a 300 Win Mag, and I remember there was this hardware store that had their sporting goods downstairs in the basement, and I remember finding boxes of these 220 grain silver tips. And I think they probably performed like shit because it was kind of a round nose, but I like the look of them. I was always buying them whenever I could find them. So I remember those were the loads that I had there. And a 220 grain bullet, that's a lot of beef, for a 30 cal in a, generally I shoot 180s in it. But anyways, I had the 220 grain. So I could see in the chest, the musculature was just, it was impressive. So and I've shot bears before your best is going to be a sideways double lung shot. Okay. And people say, oh, don't shoot him, coming straight at you. Well, you can, if you're careful about it. Well, he's angled towards me. So I aimed for the part of the chest where I thought the bullet would come out, because if you got an angled shot, you always shoot to try to break the far shoulder. And as massive as he was, I didn't think I was going to get it through to the far shoulder, because I put the crosshairs somewhere around the sternum, or just a little bit to the right side of the sternum on that thing. I say I don't know. I didn't see any genitalia or anything. Right. But anyways, I'm just a generalization. Anyway, so I shot and I put it just a little bit to the side of that sternum. I didn't think the bullet was going to go all the way through because as big as this thing was. But when I did, I saw his left arm fly up, and the way it flew, I could tell that was the bullet exiting and hitting his arm, exiting through his armpit. And then but before I even took that shot, it seemed like everything went into slow motion. I get another one in. It's a bolt action rifle. It's, they're not slow, but it's not as fast as semi-auto, of course, for your follow-up. So I get another shot in it, or I get another one chambered, and I was going to shoot in the same spot, but I saw him lean forward a little bit more, and I could see through the ambient light. He let out a huge breath. He went, whoa. And in that breath, I saw a bunch of blood come out of his mouth, which told me that, all right, his lungs are filling up with blood. So when he leaned forward, then I shot him right in the side of the head. And then it was like he just went straight down, and that was it. And then, so I had to sit down. If my legs were shaking during that time, I don't think they were. I didn't notice it, but right then they were, and I broke down. And to be honest with you, I wasn't the only one that did. It's fucked up. Well, come to find out, the deputy and I didn't go over and talk to him, but Game and Fish was talking to him, and I saw him come back to the truck, get something out of his toolbox, and he took a blanket over to him. So I think the deputy had, messed himself. Right. And so by this time and this is where I started getting the gist of it, was whoever Game and Fish was arguing with his dispatch. They were getting orders from another agency, and I want to say like BLM. I'll say I used BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, as for a generalization. It's the Forestry Department, the Department of the Interior. Right. It seems like they're all kind of interwoven. I think it was one of those that was telling them, I guess they were basically essentially telling us to don't dispatch it. They're coming. Well, the their first concern is safety of the public. And I'm assuming here, because of what little bit I got from Game and Fish on the conversation, was that they're like, no, we have to ensure the safety of the public. This, dispatch. So that's what we did. And then, so on that, then Game and Fish is on the, he's on the radio with dispatch. And then he was in a hurry to go. It's like, let's go ahead and go. Let's go ahead and go. Well, I come to find out that through all the shit happens later on, that the local municipality, the guy that was behind us, the agency that was going to be handling this, which they're coming from Salt Lake City apparently, which 2-hour drive away, if you're really breaking the speed limit, right. It might be worse. But anyways,
not to cut you off, but just so we can kind of, so this company or agency said, don't dispatch, we're on our way. They expected you guys to hold this thing in that area for a couple of hours before dispatching it. Because is that what you're saying?
As we were leaving, I saw a helicopter coming in.
No shit. Okay. So
where the side we came in on, there was kind of a big open field on the access to the alleyway on that side.
Okay.
Hang on a second. I'm going to sneeze.
Good.
So anyways, we're heading out of there. And I remember Game and Fish had to ask the deputy if he wanted to ride back with us. And he said no. I think he followed us back. I don't know. But on the way back, they're calling us to come back. And we're like, I looked at him and I said, exactly what I said. I said, fuck you, brother. I'm jumping out right now. I'm not going back. And he just said, I don't blame you. And he responded something that it was something like, it's not an option. We got there's something that I can't remember what it was. He was good with the term that he used, and they rebutted once, and then that was it. But so then I got home and I didn't sleep. I take the dogs back. I never told my friend who owned the dogs but I kind of thought, like, dogs are in the truck. They weren't exposed to it. There was no way they could have gotten hurt, but
right.
Hit the dogs back and they're, there was other dogs they had there but different. They weren't hunting dogs, some cattle dogs. And usually everybody's barking and jovial and stuff. And it was like, I opened up the portable kennels and just put them in a regular kennel, and they just went in and sat down and just looked at me, and there was no tail wagging, no nothing. And usually those are very vocal dogs.
Right.
But anyway, I'm like, yeah, sleep well.
Well, so, just from what you said, I mean, just because when you first were, aiming before a shot was even taken, you had said the dogs had urinated. So, I mean, They obviously knew something big or something intense was out there.
You could feel it in the air. It was, and that was another thing that I guess, reflecting on it in hindsight, I guess you're able to equate these things rather than, it's nothing. But,
right.
First, I'm like, it just seemed like there was a tension you could feel, and I don't know how else to describe it. I do also have to say that I don't know the history of these, but still up at that time, I didn't equate that with that being a Bigfoot. I didn't know what to think about him. It didn't. Let me get into some more detail. The size of that hand. So I guess my only thing that I did, trust to be true at the time was the Patterson Gimlin film. And even then it had been mildly stabilized, right. But you could still see the arms, legs, hands and feet, This thing's hands were, to me, it was out of proportion they were bigger than what it looked like. Like if I walked in wearing a couple of baseball gloves, So when it had its hand on the side of the dumpster, that's what I thought that hand initially there was another bear in the dumpster. And that just, and as big as that thing was, I really, and still even at the time I was, always into powerlifting and bodybuilding. So I'm 6 foot 2. I think at the time I was a good lean 235. I'm fat now. That thing could have, I think one of those hands, it could have picked me up by my torso one-handed, palmed me like a basketball. That's what just shook me to the core so much was the size. It was easily in the range of the 10 to 12 foot high range, if, in my opinion. That's what I don't think there was anything for him to be in there. I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe there was some logs in there that he was standing on. I don't think so. When I saw the massiveness of it, here's the other thing too. I guess I've got to interject. I think a lot of times when people say, they judge all this thing probably 350 pounds. I disagree. Have you ever picked up a bulldog?
Yeah, they're heavy.
That little dog. You pick up that little dog, you're like, holy shit! How does this little thing weigh so much?
Yeah.
Well,
solid.
things their muscle density is a lot tighter.
Yeah.
The fibers are a lot more packed together. A gorilla that's 5.5 tall is, a full-grown one, mature male, is going to go 400 to 500 pounds. That's not even taller than us. So one of the things I kept pondering was how much this thing had to have been well over 2,000 pounds.
Holy shit.
Well over. And that's going by the mass, the height, when I saw that arm fly up, that's where the one where I really got, I saw the hand, because when that arm flew up, on the first shot, and it hit I don't think it went through. I think that was it for that bullet when it hit its arm. But that arm went up and then almost like straight out. And that's when I saw that hand flip up. And that's where I really got a good view of like, the fuck is this thing? What is this? What is this? And then I guess, I don't know, it probably wasn't until these last couple of years that I finally thought, that's got to be what those things were. So what else was, the hair on both of them was just jet black. So, but when I did get the first shot on that one, you could see how the sparseness of the hair on the front of this one was, where you could actually see skin through the hair. But the rest of the hair, it almost was like, so it wasn't really that long on the top of the head, but it seemed like where it got to where the neck would be, like the bottom of wherever the ear line would be. On this one, the big one, it got long and flowing, almost like, I don't want to say not big like a lion mane, but it was like longer around there, and then seemed like as it went down the arms, and it went back to being shorter hair. But I don't know. I guess that was part of another part of why I didn't know what the hell this shit was, because it didn't look like, the Leonard Nimoy, the monsters, the Patterson footage. It didn't look like that. Not saying that that's not a real thing. I believe that footage is absolutely real.
Right.
But anyway, so I don't know if they had problems with these coming into town before. I don't know what the history of it was, and I'm thinking, for one, I wish they hadn't called me.
Yeah.
2, was that necessary? I don't know. I'm not a tree hugger by any means. I am an avid hunter, but I have a lot of respect for everything out there, except for coyotes. I hate those things. But I mean, everything else is like, what's necessary? I'm going to eat this. So there's predators. I want to thin a predator down, so you got, good, healthy, deer elk population. So, but at this point, so I don't know. They knew, they knew, the local municipality, whoever that was, whether it was a sheriff or they actually it was an actual police department. They knew. They were the ones that made the call. And I guess the thing that kind of like put me at ease a little bit was that they were the first ones to say, yeah, go ahead and dispatch them both. You'd hear that. So they're the ones that kind of live there. Yeah. They're the ones that have to keep their people safe. So who am I to second guess their judgment? I'm not going to do it.
Right.
You know, so, but anyways, I think it was the next day. Oh, especially if you live in a small town, buy a police scanner.
Yeah.
And listen to that thing. And we had already had one. We hadn't been in that town very long, but we knew we were new guys in a small town. It was me and a friend of mine. And so we bought a police scanner, and sure enough, it was like every once in a while you'd hear the cops would actually say, drive by our house and say, yeah, both vehicles are in the driveway. Like, why they were, checking up on us, I don't know. But it did stop once we got to know Game and Fish. So,
right.
It's small town, I guess you got to know who's.
And this was after that.
Well, no, this was before. So I'd already had the police scanner. But then, that's why I was really surprised, because I was home. God, why was I home from where I might have gotten laid off at the time? So I was home, and I did, and Jeff, the Game and Fish, comes by, and I thought, shit. Usually I'd hear, on the radio or about something. So I thought, wow, he just showed up. Anyways, he said, hey, we need to, what was the word? It wasn't confiscate, but he said, I need the rifle that I shot with. And I said, what for? And he said, for their full investigation. They just, they got to ensure that, that the rifle matched up with their ballistic stuff. And I'm like, okay, but I said, am I going to get the rifle back? And when he looked away and he said, oh, probably. I knew that bullshit. When you turn in a gun for something, it's almost impossible to get the thing back.
Right.
So pulled a dick move and gave him my girlfriend's gun. Which was a 243. But I mean, I left it in the case and handed it to him, and we were broke up, but she still hadn't come back for a gun. So I'm like, yeah, here, take this. So then I think it was about 3 days later, Game and Fish comes back by and he says, hey, we need to take a ride. And I said, I am not going back down there. He said, no. He said, we need to go give statements at the office in Salt Lake. And I said, well, I don't have anything to say about it. I said, why don't they come up here? And he goes, he said, it doesn't work that way. I said, well, what if I don't go? Because I was fixing to leave town, I think the next day, to go to New Mexico for a little job. And and he said, look, if you don't, he said, they'll subpoena you in. And he said, I don't want to go more than you do, but he said, we got to go down there together. I said, you got to give a statement? He said, no, you do. I said, well, why do you have to take me down there? It's not that I didn't trust him. I'm just kind of like trying to get information, because we didn't talk about anything on the way back, really, that night. That was almost 2 hour drive back, or about hour and a half drive back. It was really windy road. Anyways, so I said, all right, we'll go down. And on the way down, I started asking him, like, dude, what the fuck? What? He said, I don't know. And he said, the less questions we ask, the faster it'll be through this. And I'm like, okay, what about them? They get to ask questions. And he said, I don't know. He said, they know they want to get a statement, and they fingerprinted me. And the one thing I was worried about was the guy kept pressing me about that was the gun that I used. And I go, yeah, he goes pretty evasive. I said, yeah, I said, it was at night. I grabbed the gun out of the closet, and I said, I'm pretty sure that's one I used. So I don't know. They had to have recovered a bullet if I would think. So they would know. There's a big difference between a 243 and a 300 Win Mag.
Yeah.
So,
It is.
but didn't make a huge issue out of that. But the one issue was it was, they didn't call it this, but essentially it was a non-disclosure agreement. And it was to, not discuss this. But as I recall, there was a time frame on it, though. But I don't remember what that time frame was. But it wasn't a pleasant interview, because it was, he was asking me the details and stuff, and a lot of what I just explained here but what I got out of it was I think Game and Fish was also in hot water for bringing a civilian into this. So it'd be like, the North Hollywood shootout. If, the SWAT team brings in a civilian to say, hey, take that guy out for us. I think, kind of on that lines.
Right.
Initially, though, it was what Game and Fish was, because he was grilled on this a little bit to try to, when they were asking me, like, why were you there? What, And he said, because we were told this was something different. And he rattles out the protocol for, wildlife coming into town, dangerous wildlife coming into town, raccoons and stuff or whatever, trap them, mountain lions and bears, which is not uncommon. This is their protocol. If Game and Fish doesn't have the resources and the dogs to do it, if dogs are needed, then, then they have somebody that's I don't know how to put the term, rapport with them. So my buddy had already had the rapport with them for like a year or two. Through, probably, to be all honest with you, from the first time I went out, kind of, I would call it a ride along with them on this, was probably maybe only about 6 or 8 weeks before that.
Wow.
And then anyway, but one of the other things, who owned the dogs? What are and Game and Fish had, they interjected, like, look, the dogs stayed in the back of the truck. They never got out. That's really not pertinent. So they did kind of drop that. But so I remember I signed that. They fingerprinted me. I still never got the gun back. And then going back, I tried to bring it up again with the Game and Fish guy, and he said, look, your non-disclosure agreement, he said, that covers between you and I too. And he was like, really? That's the first time he kind of got shitty with me, which told me that they were leaning on him too.
Right.
That wasn't his nature, I thought, So I didn't bring it up anymore. But then I can't remember how much longer after that I was coming home from something one night. I was probably out drinking. And I pulled into the gas station to get something on, before I went home. And that same sheriff deputy from that night pulls in behind me and lights me up in the parking lot, not even on the street. I'm in the parking lot at the gas station. Lights me up, asks for my license and everything. I tried to make small talk with him about that night, and it was just like, he looked at me like he'd never seen me before in his life. Wow. And writes me a ticket because he said my license was suspended. I'm like, for what? My license isn't suspended. I still had a out-of-state license, and I had out-of-state plates on my truck still. But I'm like, my license isn't suspended. So I think the next day I called Arizona DMV. Yeah, your license suspended, unpaid seatbelt ticket. I said, seatbelt ticket from where? And they said, Wyoming. And I'm like, I've never gotten a ticket in Wyoming. So I'm just like, what the hell's going on here? So I go to court to fight this. So first you go into court. I pled not guilty, and I was like, I wasn't, So then I have to go to court for your, to defend it or whatever. And I said, my license was supposedly suspended. I said, I want to see the the ticket that it was suspended for, well, that's when I get educated on the legal system that, no, you should have asked for that before. This isn't the time, that was, so you got to prove anyway. So basically I had to eat it. It was a $500 fine. So I didn't pay it. And I think about closer on towards summertime, I had a job offer in Phoenix. So I'm like, yeah, I'm moving. I'm out of here. So I left, and then it wasn't until 2005 or I think 2005 I went to renew my driver's license, and I'd renewed it multiple times since then. In 2005, they said, "Oh man, Wyoming's got a hold on your license." I'm like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah. Wow.
No fucking way.
Trumped up charges and holding your license years later. That's messed up.
That's fucked up. Well, it was come to find out it was because I didn't pay that fine. So I'm like, all right. So I kind of I blew it off. I didn't blow it off. It's just like, shit, I got to go up there and I got to go back up to that county. So anyways, I was doing some work up in North Dakota. And then when the job was over, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to swing on down to that courthouse and go pay this. So I went to go pay that in 2011, walked into that same courthouse, and it was just, I had goosebumps, and went up to the clerk and, told her my name, my driver's license number. I said, I got an old fine I need to pay you guys. And she pulled it out and she goes, huh? I said, what? She goes, we just released this last week. You don't have to pay it. She goes, you can still pay if you want. I said, nope. But I said, I want something in writing that it's freaking released, which I did get.
Yeah.
And I left out of there, still shaking my head, like, what the hell? So I don't know if that was just like maybe there was a display of, look, I don't know, maybe we can reach you, we can make your life tough. I don't know. I don't know if I don't know. But
display of power, what they had, if you said you had to sign a non-disclosure, right, or something like a non-disclosure. So
yeah, but yeah, it was. I don't. Like I said, this all came about in '94, so I maybe it was called that. I don't remember exactly what it was called, but it was a shut your mouth agreement with stipulations in there on how it was. A class level, whatever level class felony or whatever, if you do talk. And I'm like, wow, holy shit. Because I tried asking the guy, like, what was this? What was all this? And he said, we're not here. That's not what we're here to discuss. And basically it was like, we're here to discuss your conduct. And like, what the fuck did I do, man?
Right.
And so anyways, it was, kind of add insult to injury, that was dramatic enough, and then to get that bullshit backed on top of it was like, really, you guys?
Yeah, that's intense. I mean, you're kind of brought into something not even, of your own. It's not even your field, pretty much, and then you get the shit end of the stick on that one completely.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was always kind of wondering, like, man, why didn't Game and Fish shoot it? And then later on thinking, you know what, I've never seen anything but just a sidearm on his hip. I've never seen they have any kind of a long arm rack in his truck or anything. So I don't know if it was kind of like Mayberry type thing, the Game and Fish just didn't normally carry a long arm. Most of the law enforcement agencies, you see like the AR type of weapon or
they always have a long rifle with them or some sort of shotgun or on top of the sidearm.
And I think that was a shotgun, unless you're getting it down that thing's mouth at the size of that one.
Right.
I don't care what kind of slugs you had. I don't think you could have got the penetration, even with these Reineke Black Magics. I wouldn't have. I mean, if I had one, I would have used it, but I wouldn't have felt that wouldn't have been my first choice for sure. But I think he would have, like I said, had it shoved down its mouth for it to, be that effective, or I don't know. like I said, I mean, anything, if it bleeds, you can kill it, you know, but I don't know. 22 definitely, you know, and
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when you
yeah, when
you
don't
said
bring,
you aimed up on that thing. I was like, it's a good thing you didn't bring that 22.
I wouldn't have squeezed off with that. I would have probably ran. But I'm pretty sure that deputy had, you know, I'm pretty sure it was a 308 that he had, because it was, you know, I do remember seeing it. I remember seeing it was kind of a bull barrel, looked like the typical, you know, I guess like a SWAT sniper, you know, what for that time period. I think they're a lot more technical now, especially with the, you know, some of the big, you know, like the North Hollywood shootout, stuff like that. I think they've, you know, gotten up with the times a bit more.
Militarized, you know, even Mayberry cops have some pretty high-tech firearms.
Full body armor and everything, right?
Yeah.
So that was it. And I just, I don't know. It's, I guess maybe with, I don't know. That's about most of the details that I can think of. And if you have any other questions later on, just, you know, like, hey, well, did you see any of this or what, you know, man, feel free to ask me. Cause
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
some of this stuff has kind of jogged my memory.
Well, like you said, 94 is a long time ago, you know, and I truly feel like I could feel your pain, you know, I mean,
So it was, I guess it's just, I don't know, anxious, or it feels good to kind of let it out, but I still, I appreciate this bit of anonymity, so to speak, because of, you know, this definitely the community this Bigfoot community is pretty vicious. Yeah. And I don't want to be subjected to any of that crap. I like my blissfulness, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
People that go out looking for them. I can't say that I haven't. I've gone out, I guess, you know, and I have a few times with my buddies. Just, I'm cool with, you know, if I hear them, which we have heard them, but I don't ever want to see one again. No way. No effing way. I wouldn't want to see another one again as much as I'd want to see a horrific car accident.
Right.
It's right up there with me. I don't want to see that again ever.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, when you were describing the moments prior to and up into the time you took the shot just now, you were very emotional. Were you emotional at that point? Was it because you kind of realized that it wasn't a bear, there was possibly some sort of humanistic characters or something that just kind of resembled a monster? I mean, you know, it's not a bear, it's not a human, it's what the hell is it at one time you think it kind of resembled its head coming out of its chest because it was so friggin' big. You realize its hands are big. You know, you said the deputy had pissed himself, so obviously you were, you know,
it was. My emotional came from, I was terrified more than I ever thought was possible. And I'll put a little bit more backstory in here. And I don't know where it comes from, but there was something when I was a kid. So I'm 54 years old. I will be soon. When I was a kid, I remember the first time I saw the Patterson Gimlin film. It was on TV. I think it was In Search of or whatever.
Yeah,
I remember watching
Nimoy. I remember when I first saw it, it was Leonard Nimoy, In Search of.
Yeah, and I remember watching that, and you knew that you're looking at something that is truly real. And I remember asking my dad. I guess there was a part of me that wanted to be real. I said, "Dad, is that real?" And my dad said, "Yeah." He said, "It is," and it scared the shit out of me. I mean, it literally scared the shit out of me. Yeah. And we lived in Southern California at the time. And then it was just so kind of always in the back of my mind that, you know, we have all these beasts on the earth and, you know, we can handle all of them. But what about that? you know, what about that? So then when we moved to Arizona, then where we lived, I remember we were way out in the boonies. We had cattle and stuff, and remember my bedroom window. My bed was like right next to my bedroom window, and I was just always scared shitless of something walking past my window. Right. I don't know why. Nothing ever had, but then, with things be here, and, you always, at that time, it was, they're, according to what everybody would say, was they're relegated to the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We're a long ways from that. But I always thought, you know what? How come they could walk down here,
Easily, yeah.
Why don't they? So there's a good chance. So it would just get my mind going. So I'd get scared. Not scared, terrified, because I even got into in my, my early teens, some of my getaway was, everybody's home life sucks now, to me, mine really sucked, but my getaway was my chores are done. I'm going camping. I taught myself how to camp and backpack, and I bought gear and stuff. And, my only defense at that 12 years old, I had a 22 caliber pellet gun. But I wasn't too worried. I thought, okay, there's a big thing out here that get me, maybe a mountain lion or a bobcat. By that time, I've seen enough that those things, they don't want it. They'll get away from you. I wasn't really worried about them. So then, I get to, in my interests, I'm trying to, every once in a while, if I could find a book at the library about Bigfoot, and it was still very limited, but I also learned a lot more about hunting and stuff. And so when my parents allowed me to, when I was 15, I was able to buy my deer hunting rifle. I bought a 30-06. So the reason being was, some of the other guys, one of my dad's friends, well, get a 243, it's a good deer rifle. And I'm thinking, I always thought in the back of my head, yeah, no, what if there's a Bigfoot? I was like 30-06 would fucking take care of it. And I never told anybody that. But that's why my first gun was a 30-06. So then in Minnesota, I was working in Minnesota in 2014 doing some anomaly digs, and we came in this area, and there was some cattle in there. We basically were digging up these parts of the right of way to test pipeline that had a bad call out reading or a marginal call out reading. So dig it up, expose it, and test it with ultrasound. But we get into this spot one morning, and there's cattle in there, but there's no houses around. It's out in the woods in a big right of way cutout. We get in there, and immediately I smell this smell, and that's what I'll put in that whole thing on that night back in '94. I don't remember any smell. So I don't know if maybe there was a breeze going the other direction or what. I didn't hear a smell. So if anybody's wondering about that, no, I didn't.
Right.
But this in Minnesota, I got this smell that was just so putrid. And it reminded me of when, before that whole thing happened in '94, I used to live down in the Virgin Islands in the early '90s. And people down there are lazy. And so one day there was a local market, like a supermarket, had caught on fire, and it had a meat market too. Well, after they get the fire put out, then the building's destroyed, so we're not going to do anything with it. So they let all that meat in the meat department just go rancid, and it stunk the neighborhood up so bad you could not even imagine. But they didn't care as long as they didn't have to clean it up. They're like, so anyways, that rancid smell was kind of part of what I was smelling that morning, and mixed with I don't know what else. But I'm like, oh, what the heck? But after a little while, and our equipment started pulling in, smell went away. So we get everybody going. I was the lead inspector on this, and once we got the pipe exposed, then I grabbed my camera and I went for a walk around through the woods next to the right of way, and I found these oak trees that strips of bark were peeled off, and they were peeled off about 2 inches wide, and they had they're peeled off enough, and they were long peels, but as they would peel them, it would curl them, kind of like, wrapping paper ribbon.
Right.
And looking at it, and they were moist on the inside. So when you peel the bark off, this was coming out it was bringing some pulp with it, a little bit of pulp on the inside of that bark. Well, it was all chewed on, and you could see where something was like just gnawing on it, all the full strip of it, gnawing on all the pulp. And then it looked like when they're done with it, they just, laid it over this branch. I got like 3 of those big strips. They were still wet. And the branch was so high, I had to use my tape measure to reach up to. I couldn't even jump high enough to pull them off. So who knows what it was, but this was when, I didn't know who to call, but I thought, we got wet saliva on here. There's DNA.
Right. So
I got a hold of the BF, and I'm not going to continue to give them any more airspace, but got a hold of them, and they had their local researcher calls me, and I told him what I had, and it was just, well, okay, I'm down here and such, and you need to bring this down here. I said, well, I'm working 7 days a week. Can you come up and get them? And the response was, well, you don't understand. Just like chewing me out like I'm not doing something right. And I just hung up on him. I said, fine. You guys, screw it.
It's almost like laziness on their end, like they
do. And it could be just, there's, anyways, it kind of, so I thought, well, you know what? I've got my answers anyways. I don't need to be going to you guys for anything anyways. So, and it's just, so that's just kind of where everything is kind of lied since then. So,
well, I want to thank you for sharing this with me and everyone else.
Thank you.
I know that it's been a while. You and I had emailed a while back. And just throughout time, you were able to share it, and I appreciate it. And it's truly a very intense and emotional subject for you, and I thank you very much for.
Thanks for making the platform available. This is it. It's anyways. I just appreciate it. Without having this available, I know there's other avenues, but there's certain things that this just feel comfortable with. This was a good fit for me.
Good,
and I appreciate that greatly, because if without you doing this, I wouldn't have had that fit for me. And it's I don't know. I could have gone the rest of my life without putting it out there, but it kind of, I don't know, with what everybody else has gone through, some of this shit needs to get out there. Regardless of how I feel about it, it did need to get out there. So
yeah, because what you just shared with us, that emotion that you had, that might trigger someone else to get brave and come out and share and help them, because it's a healing process as well. I mean, it's a learning thing for people who have not had an encounter, but a healing process for others who have, to know that, hey, this guy saw the same thing I had or something similar, and he feels the same way I do, so, because it's, just like, I can relate to what one thing that you said, I've seen something, I didn't have to shoot, thank the Lord, but, you went to the library and you picked up any kind of book that you could find. Like I went to used bookstores and picked up any book that I could find on the subject after I had my encounter. And it was roughly the same time of, I had mine in 93, 94, somewhere around there. And it was the summer of 93 going into 94, so right before school ended for me, before graduation, my last year of school. But there was no internet, there was no nothing, and all we could do is just look for books and some sort of something, and I can relate to you.
There's no validation to
nothing.
Like crazy.
There was more books on UFOs than Bigfoot, and it was definitely crazy. So
and it's, I guess, yeah, the internet is a double-edged sword for sure. But there was just, I couldn't tell anybody on two reasons. One, I'd be in trouble if I did, and two, the ridicule. I mean, there's some, just the ridicule of like, no, that doesn't happen. It's just, anyways. So I guess jail time isn't at my age. I think jail time it doesn't hurt as bad as ridicule sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's hard to. But anyways, it's for people that are out there looking, be careful what you wish for.
That's right.
That's
right.
There's some parts of it I think is neat. The hobby part of it, like I said, we've gone into a place to listen and it is neat. But in every the times that we have heard them, that I'm like, okay, I'm good with that. And
yeah.
My buddy's like, man, I want to see this, and I'm in my head, I'm going, oh, fuck you. No, you don't.
Yeah.
But I'm not anti-kill, but I don't think it's a good idea. I mean, if you have to, you have to, but I think just everything that comes with it. There's the legal side of it. If it goes to that point, or you don't know how many more are there,
Exactly.
The power this thing had, the one when it picked up that dumpster, like, what size dumpster I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly. I do. They're about, like, I don't know, 7 feet in the front, 7 feet by 10 feet, somewhere around there. And they're big.
Yeah. You got to throw stuff over into them.
Yeah.
It wasn't a roll off, but it was, a 2-lid dumpster. That's to smash it up and down like it did with just that hand out of, pissed offness, was like, that thing may have just been made out of wicker. It was just, my God, you're not even safe in your car.
No.
No. Anyway, it's just so.
Well,
I guess
I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm coming up on time for the recording ability. Don't hang up, because I want to talk to you a little bit after.
Okay, yeah.
Is there anything that you'd like to say to the audience listening before we end?
I think I pretty much covered it.
You definitely have, my friend. Definitely. Thank you again for coming on. I truly appreciate it. It took balls, man. It really did, and I appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.
I had a guy named Tom on, and he was called in to dispatch a air quotes bear, and turns out it wasn't a bear. Well, there was a lot of questions and some things that he had forgotten about, and so I'm bringing Tom back today to answer the questions, and so he can kind of share what he can to fill in the blanks that you guys wanted to know. So, Tom, how are you?
Doing good today, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. Thank you for coming back. I appreciate it. It was an honor to have you, and the reception of everybody. You know, it was just a great interview. One of the best that I've had in a very long time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot.
So, I guess you went through the comment section and saw some questions and things, and then some memories came back. I'm going to hand the floor over to you so you can fill in the blanks and share some things that you had left out that might kind of paint a better picture.
Appreciate that. Thank you. One of the things I did notice, that was the, aside from sitting down in the Salt Lake office, that was the first time I had vocalized it to anybody since then because of everything. There's nobody else I've ever told about this. So when it was coming out, I was jumping all over the place because, I don't know, it was a new experience for me. Just speaking about it is one thing to think about it. And secondly, it was a lot different than I thought. And that's why there was a few times I really kind of got caught up in it, in the emotions of, as it had happened.
Right.
But one of the things I guess I wanted to get out there, my emotion wasn't coming so much from of regret. The regret was I didn't want to be there because of, I'm seeing something that it rattled me to my soul. Because when I come to the realization of what's happening there, you're looking at something that you've been, I think, deep down programmed to think doesn't exist, and when you think you think monsters and that's the monsters don't exist. But when you find out that they really do, it shakes you on a level that I couldn't describe. So that was where the emotional part was coming out from. And then probably the fact that I got to release a bit of it. And I appreciate everybody's interest in that, because that being able to release it was huge for me. And I'm very thankful for it. And thank you, Jeff.
No problem.
And so I guess, let me give you an example. So there's certain things that, I guess maybe imprinted in our DNA, imprinted in our psyche that we always think wouldn't really exist. You see awesome special effects on movies and whatnot. And like, man, that looks really real. But in the end, you're like, no, that's not real. That's good special effects. When you see it, I saw it was a short video. I don't know who did it, but it was with a German Shepherd dog, which is, they're not vicious dogs, but they're generally not a coward type of dog, where they put this really real looking little dinosaur on a trail that when the dog came into view of it on the trail, when the dog saw it, the reaction of that dog was really profound, because that I think in that dog's DNA, he's looking at something that's that's not in place, and it shook that dog. It was, the terror in that dog was it was really moving, kind of like if your family dog, you're used to, or anybody's, pet comes walking in with a cat head on it, it would freak you out. Remember that movie, Signs, with Mel Gibson, Joaquin Phoenix?
Yep.
Okay. Remember when there was a scene there where Joaquin Phoenix was looking on the news, and they're like, hey, all these things go. And then when they first showed that alien walk out into that little breezeway, the reaction of Joaquin Phoenix, and he's just seeing this on TV.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you remember his reaction.
Yeah.
He jumped up and
Yeah, I do. And then he screamed something because they were in like, it was on a Spanish channel, and he screamed something in Spanish or something. Like, I remember that.
And it's so that's I guess where my frame of mind was when this happened, and I probably made some noises too, out of terror. I probably did. I'm sure I did. But anyway, so it was the terror part of it more than the remorseful part of it that I was dealing with there, and not to be, I don't know, I guess not to thumb my nose at other people's interpretation of, remorse or whatever. It's just, I'm just being honest. I don't have anything really against killing these things. But I don't want the choice to be mine. And if it was something that I was ever crossed with again, it would only be just to defend myself or my family. I would, if I had the opportunity to remove myself, say if it was camping or something, time to go. I'm not going to go, I'm going to go kill this thing. Because I don't know what, I had a lot of other people there with me, even though I didn't feel safe about it. But, at the time it was, I guess like going into a fight, your buddies are there to make sure you don't get your butt kicked, even though who knows how that would have worked out, So anyways, get back to, that was where the terror was really coming from.
Okay.
Was seeing something that I always thought was a monster, and, the monsters aren't real.
So more of a shock factor.
It was a bit of a shock factor and yes, that's the exact description for sure.
Okay.
But the other thing was too, when the second one, when I said, and it started to come up, it was, and dealing with in my past, dealing with bears and mountain lions, when something's getting ready to bolt. That thing was getting ready to go somewhere. And that was another reason for the haste of making a decision to do something, because the size of it, for one, I don't know why it didn't just turn around and go through the fence. That fence would have been just like toothpicks. But as it was rising up, you had the police on the other end of the alley that had the lights on it, and then us. It was looking back and forth between one end and us. And every time it looked over at us, it was looking directly at me, which there's no doubt in my mind that it knew that I was the one that just did what I did. So, when it was going to, in my mind, if that thing was going to bolt, I don't know. I didn't know what was coming next. I knew, we had the truck there that I don't think if we would have gotten in that truck, that wouldn't have helped us. If that thing was coming to get us, that truck wouldn't have stopped it. So things went into slow motion, and it honestly, when the two shots that I took, everything went in my mind, everything went silent. But getting back to that, as it rose up, I did leave out a lot of what I saw on this thing. So I put it with a body mass and whatnot, but its head, I described the chin, which was just, to me, bizarre. But anyways, the other part of the face was black, but they did have some lights on it from the other end of the alley. They weren't that great, but it was something more than just a mag light, But the way the head was, I remember the brow ridge was so heavy and curved down to the sides, Do you remember in The Empire Strikes Back that that scene where they're running through the forest, chasing those guys on those speeders in the forest, those stormtroopers, their helmets, this protrusion over the top that I'm like, how the hell can those things have any peripheral vision?
Right.
To me, that's what that brow ridge looked like. You know, the brow ridge looked like it came down over the, over the sides of the eyes a little bit, not the full way, not but to me, that's what it looked like. And then, so from the brow ridge, once that heavy brow ridge there, the forehead just went back. It didn't go up. The forehead looked like it just started sloping back. And then about, about halfway back, that's when the hairline started. So it was like, it had this look of a receding hairline, but it looked normal for it though.
Okay.
You know, it didn't give off the like, oh, this thing's getting old. It looked like it may have always been that way. I don't know, but it looked like that just looked like that's the way it should have been. So, I didn't see any eye shine on that thing, but I could see when that thing turned to look at me, I could see the darkness of where the eyes were, but I couldn't actually discern an eyeball, you know, because when it would turn towards me, then that part of the face would go more into the shaded area because the flashlights or whatever they were using was coming from the other direction. But you could make out that, yeah, that's where his eyes are. And anyways, so let me think what else I definitely wanted to get that more in the description on the face. The way the mouth came down, it didn't stick out, in my opinion, as much as an ape would. Okay. But it was definitely more than a human, you know, it definitely stuck out, but not as much as a human. And then when it coughed and blew blood out after that shot, I could see teeth, but I really didn't notice them. But not notice them, but I didn't focus on those. But they definitely weren't like our teeth. But it's not like I saw some big jagged fangs or anything. You know, it seemed like the teeth were a longer teeth, you know, there wasn't these squared off blocky teeth. I'm pretty sure there was some canines in there that were much bigger than, you know, what our little canine teeth are. Right. So, and then, they had, did I just get to the part where I didn't think they weren't eaten out of the dumpster.
No, you haven't shared that yet. No.
They ended up there. It's not like I went and shot a couple of hungry animals that were eaten out of the dumpster. You know, I didn't pay much attention to going over the radio, what was going on over the radio. But on our way there, initially these things were somewhere else. And there were people calling in that they'd had problems with these coming into town before, from what I gathered, and eating livestock and pets. So these things had been a problem prior to that. And I remember the game warden when we left, and he had mentioned that there was 2 bears. I'm like, 2 bears? You know, I had even questioned that, and he did mention it. He said, "Oh, this isn't the first time with these." I do remember that. So, and I don't know if that's what the police still thought they were. That I don't know. But let's see. This town is at the base of the Uinta Mountains, so it's close to the base of the Uinta Mountains. So it's in a kind of a scrubby pinyon pine cedar tree area, and then not too far from there, and then it goes up into the Uintas. So it was pretty close to a big mountain range. And then of course on the other side of that mountain range is Vernal, in Fort Duchesne, and that's where Skinwalker Ranch is. Not that that has anything to, not that I think that these had anything to do with that, but just to give you a little more, maybe a visualization on the geography.
Right.
Anyways, I guess, what other question that's, God, I thought there was others that I wanted to cover, so I'm probably going to need your help here on asking questions.
Okay, let me go through. I know that one person said that they were a little confused about the mouth and how the face protruded outwards, which you just answered. This is an interesting statement. It's not a comment, but I want to get your feeling on it.
Okay.
Man, he was made the fall guy for this operation to dispatch this creature or creatures. That was sorry as hell. He did them a favor. If he reads my post, Mister, you did the right thing. I imagine you will have PTSD from this incident. Hang in there. Do you feel like you were the fall guy on that one?
No. I think it was a circumstance that, when, on the background of this, that, this is what we did with Game and Fish on, mostly, with the mountain lions. They didn't have the resources to have dogs for doing this, which I get it, because it's, so this is something we did for them and with them. So when the game warden picks me up, I don't think there was that intention at all. This is just the way it turned out to be, because I don't think for a second that he had any inclination of what was actually going on until we got there. Okay. So I don't think it was that. I think it was just, this is how it turned out, and it wasn't, it wasn't originally intended to be that way, even though it's kind of the way it came out. I got to say, that other agency, they definitely did say, hold off. So I'll give them that. But it just, when, the way those acted initially, when the game warden had put the spotlight on it and the thing just went crazy and then immediately shut the spotlight off. I think he shut that spotlight off because it scared the hell out of it. So I think at that point, that's when they're like, no, we got to take him out. That's my opinion. Right. Had those things just been docile like that, we probably could have waited out and let, the other authorities take care of it. But I think, with that violent of an eruption, I mean, when it smashed that, so it was rocking that dumpster around, when it had its hand on the dumpster when he first shined that light on it. And I think that dumpster was already taking damage from that. But then when I shot the first one and then I saw the dumpster come up and smash back down on the ground, then it was just like, it was smashing that dumpster down kind of like you would smash a beer can. I mean, not completely flat, of course, but it was, I definitely saw that it smashed the bottom of that dumpster down, the bottom corner that I could see. Right,
yeah. So it was definitely acting violent prior to you guys showing up. And yeah, that makes sense, and in a way I kind of did, after hearing it, I was like, wow, I even felt like you took the blame and the fall and everything, but, at first they didn't know what the heck you were, or maybe they did and they just didn't let you know, and they said, hey, there's a freaking bear, don't bring your 22.
Yeah. So, and I think the other municipality there was, when they called, they probably, I'm sure they knew at that point that this is something more than a bear, but I think their protocol was to call Game and Fish. So, but where that was located, their local game warden was probably a lot farther away. And I don't know if was their local game warden was probably, may have been clear over the mountain in Vernal. I don't know. So it was closer to call us or to call this game warden.
Right. Well, that kind of touches on this one, but I just want to kind of this story is incredibly disheartening. Why kill these creatures? They were feeding, trying to survive by finding food. They hadn't broke into someone's house. It was a dumpster. Why not tranquilize them, relocate them? Something other than murder. Hell, I would bet they had shown spotlights, played sirens, they would have fled. But these men had to murder these beings dealing with the knowledge that they were humanoid. Well, like you had just said, they weren't feeding out of the dumpster. That wasn't where they ended up. There had been numerous livestock and pets.
Right. There was, and then secondly, when you tranquilize something, you got to go by body weight. You overtrank it, you're just going to die. You undertrank it, and then it's like, it's not going to work out. So for one, I mean, you have to have a biologist or there that does that. Secondly, it takes a long time for that stuff to kick in. I'll give you an example of that. I followed this when I lived in California. There was somewhere around Camarillo, somebody had spotted a Bengal tiger or some kind of tiger in a residential area. So they, the proper authorities responded to it, and then they ended up killing it. And everybody's like, oh, why couldn't they have just tranquilized it? Well, they explained it. For one, there's a school over here. This is a residential area. When you tranquilize something, it's not like it doesn't know. It just gets a dart stuck in it,
Right.
So it's going to react. And the possibility of between the 15 to 20 minutes that the tranquilizer would take effect in that amount of time, that thing could have mauled and killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first priority is the safety of the public. And, if people have a hard time with something.
No, I agree. I agree. And I'm just going through the questions and statements, but like this one, I did feel sorry for those creatures immediately. I thought he was getting emotional from compassion, but he didn't say he felt remorse. I was sad for the Sasquatch, and for you people that say they eat humans, well, not all of them do. Well, me and you were talking for a while after and before this whole thing, so we shared a lot of little tidbits with each other. Even if it's a Dogman, Sasquatch, whatever, they're not our friends. They're not cute and cuddly, like the story with the Bengal tiger. They're a wild animal. They are a predator, and the main focus is on the public.
Yes.
Some 10-year-old little girl rides her bike by that dumpster. You think the Sasquatch is just going to let her ride by? I don't. These things are there. There's numerous accounts of them being just savage animals. So I think that you did the right thing. I disagree with the people going out in the woods and just going and hunting them, just for fun or for sport. But when they come and they encroach on, our cities, our populace, that's when we need to, stop it.
I do believe there's a high level of intelligence with them. This wasn't like it was a particularly hard winter. Why they were there, I don't know. But I have listened to accounts to where these things have been, compassionate. I get that.
Yeah.
But I've also heard plenty where they haven't been.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you got to err on the side of not. You really do. Otherwise, what if somebody gets killed? And to be honest with you, that thing could have turned around and went backwards straight through that fence, and there was houses right there. And to be honest with you, as big as that thing was, I think it could have ran through both sides of that house and we're not even hardly slowed down.
Right.
Now, I don't know if they had, I'm pretty sure, I do remember seeing one of the cop cars on that back street And I think they had evacuated some of those people out of those homes. But I think, I could be wrong. But it's, say on accounts that I've heard a lot of really savage attack accounts, and people getting torn up. And I've also heard some really heartwarming, compassionate ones.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the percentage is on good to bad, but when it comes to safety, I feel, you gotta err on the worst case scenario and take care of it from there.
Yeah, you've always got to play on caution. I mean, we don't know what they're thinking. We don't know what their reaction is going to be. There is intelligence with these things, but when you corner something like this thing was, it felt cornered. I'm assuming, picking up that garbage can. So
yeah,
when something's cornered, regardless if it's a human, an animal, we react. An animal reacts, and we are animals, so we're going to react as well. A lot of people just completely forget that, hey, we are animals as well, just because we can talk and build houses and shit like that. We still have that primal instinct of being cornered. So
yeah.
I don't know.
And there's another part to this to where, our domestic livestock, that's our, each rancher, farmer, that's his way of supporting his family.
Yeah.
And then I think that, and this is just me thinking, I could be way off, I don't know, but kind of how I feel is that if these are that smart, which I believe they are, they know there has to be some inherent risks coming with, I'm going to take some livestock. So I don't know what the full history was. So they may have gotten used to coming in and taking livestock. All right, nobody's doing anything. We're just going to keep doing it. Well, there's repercussions to things that you do. And I think there are some that they'll leave livestock alone because they know it's, hey, don't mess with that. You're gonna get the wrath of man coming down at you for it. So they did. As intelligent as I feel they are, I think they probably knew that there was some risk of, I don't know, and I'm just speculating here, but it's, there's, I know down south, we rarely, if ever, with cattle had any problems with mountain lions, because I think it's just been so ingrained in their DNA that, don't mess with the cattle. The dogs are coming.
Yeah.
I really do, because it was really hard to get into, unless it's an old one. And I only heard of one time in probably 15 to 20 years down south of an old one even coming anywhere near anybody's livestock. And actually the thing had gone into the guy's barn, which was really strange, but it was, it was old.
Yeah.
But as far as free ranging cattle, I mean, even calves, when we go check calves, every calf and every cow, when that's your job, every single one of them, when one's missing, and we rarely, I don't remember ever any mountain lion predation problems on our cattle.
Yeah.
So,
but I agree. So,
I could be wrong, but that's just my thought process on it.
So let's check some more. Choo-choo. Interview was the best. Moral of the story. Great interview. BLM is a horrible agency. They are catching all the wild horses in Nevada, secretly shopping them in Mexico to make dog food.
If they're secretly doing that, then how do they know?
Yeah.
I'm not defending the BLM. I don't like them either, and I'm not going to sidebar into that. I think they've gotten very extremely overreaching. But
all of these little alphabet agencies have definitely.
Right, but then on the flip, devil's advocate, like I said, I don't like the BLM, but if I know there's a lot of the wild Mustangs in Wyoming, and also know that it's not an indigenous species to North America. And there's a certain amount that they need to eat, to graze on, and then there's wildlife that needs that same stuff too. So if you start getting an overpopulation of these things, I'm going to side on the part of wildlife and do what you can on getting rid of the horses, hopefully adopt them out. But it is a very expensive endeavor to do. And I'm a horseman, so I'm like, don't think that I'm like, oh yeah, just kill horses. No, that's not where I'm coming from. There has to be a sustainable balance. And especially if you get into desert areas, your square mile of land supports less and less ungulates, hoofed animals. Right. So it could get to the point to where even they're starving themselves out. And I tell you what, to see something starve to death, that's not pretty. That's sad.
No, it is. Yeah. And a lot of those, those wild horses, my uncle used to be back in like the 70s and 80s when they, the ranchers that hire people to work on those ranches that existed back then that probably aren't there anymore. But he said that he would come, go out on rides with, the public and stuff, and they'd find living wild horses that were dead or dying of starvation and lack of water and shit like that. I mean, it's sad. This one's a good one, and I want to kind of get when he said it sounded like it was hitting the other one. I couldn't figure out why it would do that. It didn't sound like a reaction I'd expect. I think it was beating its chest like Sasquatch are said to do, a display of aggression or anger. There was a point when you were talking about that when you said it sounded like it was hitting another Sasquatch or another animal that was in there. What do you think that was hitting?
I think it was hitting the other one. Okay. And I think it was because that other one was when I saw the arms reaching out, kind of sliding along the ground. I don't know if that other one was going to crawl out of there. I think it was hitting that other one because it wasn't cool with it trying to scoot on out of there. I've heard, and I don't know, I've heard people say, yeah, they'll beat their chest. I don't know what it sounds like when they beat their chest. I know what it sounds like when a gorilla beats his chest, and it's nothing like that.
Okay.
It's not a hard thump. It's like a cupped palm slap, but that's a gorilla, not a Sasquatch. So I don't know. To me, that was more the logical, because it did that when I saw the arms of the other one coming out reaching around the dumpster on the ground. So that was why I equated it to that. Who knows? They could be right. It could have been the other one just beating its chest, but it sounded like that really hollow thud.
Yeah.
Of hitting the body.
Right. I mean, I wasn't there, but I'd have to agree with what you're saying, because I'm trying to really think about the whole setup. And
yeah, and there's a chance that right too. They could have been beating its chest, but that wasn't the way I took it. So that's why. So it's something to think about for sure.
Right. So I think this is pretty much most of the questions. I just want to point out something really quick. When you said there's been many accounts of great interactions and bad interactions. Well, I've heard some great ones where, a little girl was lost and hurt, and the Sasquatch had brought the little girl back to her family. And then there's the one where this is the most violent one that I've ever heard, and it's told many different ways, but I've heard it both from Coonbo and a guy that I know, and Mark, and I shared it with you. And it's that story where supposedly the couple is in Lover's Lane. Well, I'm going to share the whole story so everybody will know actually what happened. So there's a couple in Lover's Lane, and they're doing their business. apparently some Sasquatch come up on the people. And now everyone thinks that the story goes that they killed the guy and had their way with the woman and killed her. What really happened was that the man was violently taken. They had their way with the man. They had their way with the woman as well. The man died. The woman survived. And that's how we know the story. So, you know, these things they are very aggressive and they're savage. You know, they're not just little cuddly, cute Harry and the Henderson things. And we don't know. We have to err on the side of caution, like Tom has said. You know, and I unfortunately don't think we should go out in the woods hunting them. But what Tom did that night was he inadvertently probably saved a lot of lives by taking that shot. So I agree with you, and I'm on your side on that. So thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that. It was, you know, I can definitely sleep with what I did. The part that just really still had rattled me was just, you know, the monster. You know, that was my realization of knowing that, you know, we're not. I didn't feel that I was as safe as I thought I always was because monsters weren't real.
Right.
You know, that was where I was coming from with that. And, you know, as far as guys going out hunting them, and I've watched some of the shows, you know, the Killing Bigfoot and that, and I think, to be honest, I understand why they're doing it. You know, they want to prove to science, but to be honest with you, if they are successful, I don't think it's going to get far enough to be able to be out into public enough. You know, I think the powers will shut that down pretty quick. And that's just my opinion. I don't think it's a good idea to go out and hunt them just because of, you don't know what you're going to get. I just really think a lot of people don't know what they're up against as far as, you know, if you see one, they're definitely, if they have our, you know, if they're that, I feel that they're very close to being human. They're a human hybrid of some. That being said, they definitely have emotions and anger and needs and everything, probably a lot like we do. And one of those is, you know, to be social, to procreate. So I just don't always think if you see one that's the only one.
Yeah, rule of thumb, if there's one, there's more. You know?
Yeah. So
how many animals travel through the woods alone? You know, and I mean, yeah, some do, but, you know, social animals like that, which I believe are as well. They have cognitive skill, like thinking levels, and, you know, they obviously, you know, there's rumors that they traveled with the Native Americans over the Bering Strait back in long before, you know, and there was packs with them supposedly. So, you know, they are a pod or tribe like animal. So where there's one, there's always two in my eyes.
Yeah, they're definitely. I believe so too.
And if there isn't, it's good to think that way, though.
Right, right there on the side of caution. So, anyways, that's what else is that? Was there more?
I don't think so. I think if we ever, I'm gonna, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm going to make the announcement right now. If anyone has any questions for Tom, email them to my email address. It's in the description below. I'll get them all together, and we'll have Tom answer them again. Come on and just do it if you're up for that. That way we can get.
I'd be happy to.
But I did see when I was scrolling through, a young lady said, "Hey, you know, I get a bunch of questions for Tom so we can get the answers." So if you guys have questions, send them to my email, and me and Tom will get together and answer those questions again.
That sounds good. And like I said, some of my opinion is just my opinion.
Yeah.
And the only value my opinion is to me, and I get that. So differing opinions, I'm not offended by. I understand that. I'm just, I don't mind talking about it a little bit. It's just not something I'm going to debate to try to sway anybody else's opinion.
Yeah, that's not even, we all have our opinions, and that's so.
And you know what? To be honest with you, I'm glad to see that society is still compassionate. So I don't take, I'm not offended by the.
So sorry about that, everyone. We got on the call. I got cut off. So Tom, what were you saying?
Anyways, yeah, I'm totally on board with if there's any more questions, and to anybody that if we have differing opinions on that, I'm totally fine with it. Or my opinion only has value to me, and I'm okay with that. I'm not, I won't get in a lengthy debate on, this or that, as far as moral issues of it. And I respect everybody's opinion, even if it's different than mine. That's fine.
That's how we get, and that's the best part. That's why I love cryptozoology, is because everyone has their different opinion. And if I look at all of them and take a little bit from each that kind of makes sense to me, even if it doesn't agree with mine, something may make sense. We may get the answer. But, when people start pissing on each other because their opinions are different or getting shunned because of it, that's when it's bad. So
we're going to stop learning if we don't keep our mind. And I give a little kudos to Scott Carpenter on that, where he was really good friends with Bobby Short. And he said, we had differing opinions, but we always respected each other. And he said, we always considered ourselves each other dear friends. And that speaks a lot, very on some things as far as the roadkill and what. Anyway, so
I agree with, it's just, I don't agree with what a lot of the people that I talk to, think, but we get along and we share information with each other. And, I have the utmost respect for a lot of the people that, I learn more from them. So,
exactly.
We're coming up on time. So,
okay.
Is there anything that you'd like to say to everybody before we end the interview?
No, that's about it. I appreciate the warmness and the kudos. That means a lot, and thank you very much. I appreciate the well wishes. It means a lot.
Thank you very much for coming on, Tom, and I'll keep you in the loop on the questions when they come in.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Well, there you have it, folks. Tonight's second half. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is your support, after all, that keeps the channel growing and going, and honestly what gives people a chance and a place to share their experiences and theories judgment-free, just simply treated with the respect that we all deserve. Thank you. Everyone, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, our pets, our family, and friends. These creatures are real. They are out there, and they are definitely dangerous. Share this information with the people that you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for answers, and God bless.